Carolina beat Georgia Tech 68-65 on Saturday in the Smith Center. Adam, I'm going to be honest with you. I thought this was Carolina's poorest performance of the year. I think if Carolina had been playing a better team, or maybe even Georgia Tech at full strength, the Jackets were down 2 starters, they would have been in trouble. Fortunately for Carolina, despite a really poor first 8 minutes of the game, they were only down 14-6. Then they were able to, I thought, play much better. The last 12 minutes of the first half, probably the best Carolina looked the whole game. Flipped that into a halftime lead. And then a back-and-forth second half where Carolina had the lead most of the half, but it was like 1 to 3 points almost the entire half. So a one-possession game, if you will, for most of the half, Carolina leading most of that time, but never controlling the game until the very, very end when the Heels got a couple of possessions, 5 to 7 points, and were able to eventually win it. Georgia Tech hit a meaningless layup at the buzzer to make it a 3-point finale. Adam, we talked some about this in the Rapid Reactions podcast afterwards that, again, is available video only after home games. Hubert Davis said what I think is the right comment about his team, that it just didn't play, I think he said fast and free was the term he used. It just looked like a very tense Carolina team. Every mistake felt like it was catastrophic. Every possession, it was like every pass was tense and every shot was tense and every battle for the rebound was tough, and it just didn't look like a team that was playing with a lot of confidence. It didn't look like a team that was having much fun. And quite honestly, Adam, didn't look like a team that I think we know this Tar Heel team can be, and we've seen them be. And so I think Hubert Davis used the term wounded. I kind of took that to mean just the general psyche of the team right now. Feels like Carolina needs a moment to chill out, regroup. We know this is a better team than the one we saw on the floor, and that doesn't mean you're going to have some games are going to be better than others. We understand that. But this has been a stretch where we just haven't seen the best version of Carolina, or if we did, it was against an opponent that it couldn't quite overcome. And so the ACC is wide open. It is gettable. I certainly think Duke is very good. I think Clemson has had a good start to the year. There's a handful of other teams that are going to be good. But a Carolina close to its best in this ACC is going to be one of the top teams in the conference. But a Carolina that plays like it did on Saturday is just going to be in the group of teams in the middle. And so for the Tar Heels, they got to find a way to get back to the team that we've seen. And the great news is there's a ton of time. We're only in early December. There is so much still to happen. But it feels like this break came at a good time for the Heels to try and just find themselves a little bit again.
Definitely think this week of practice and a little bit of time off is well timed. I don't think that team that played on Saturday is really representative. I almost think that's pretty close to being the floor for this team if everybody's healthy, because you can't look much less like what I think they could be than they did on Saturday. It doesn't look like folks are having a lot of fun just thinking too much about it.
Yeah.
About everything. Like, well, if I take this shot, what's going to happen? Well, it either go in or it won't. I mean, lightning's not going to hit you, but it looked like there were times that the Tar Heels felt like, well, if I miss this one, something really bad could happen. And I think Hubert Davis will use this week to try to restore some of that confidence that it seems like was lost, which is unfortunate because, as you said, the losses were largely against teams that I think we knew were probably better than Carolina.
Tar Heels have 4 losses right now. I think 3 of the teams they've played are better than them. Kansas, Alabama, and Auburn right now are better than Carolina. The Michigan State game, I mean, just every time I think about it, Adam, it just feels like a huge moment that Carolina, I think, is certainly equally as good as Michigan State, if not better. I don't think the Spartans are significantly better this year than the Tar Heels are. and there were opportunities to win it that Carolina just couldn't quite grab. I do wonder if just the whole general feel is different had Carolina been able to win that game. There's still the disappointment of the Alabama performance. Carolina didn't play great in that game, and all the overriding things that I think that put on display along with all the other ACC, SEC games that we talked about at length on Friday. The record, 5-4, is obviously not very good at this moment, but Carolina's played one of the hardest schedules in the country. And I think that's the thing, and I think you agree with me. Carolina, close to its best, is going to be one of the best teams in the league. And so that's the focus here moving forward.
It's interesting. I was thinking about it this weekend, and I was thinking, if Carolina hadn't played really well in the final minutes against Elon and gotten a couple key baskets against Georgia Tech, it could be at like DEFCON 3 right now. Right. But then I started thinking, well, wait a second. If Carolina had held on at Kansas and the technical foul doesn't get called at in Maui against Michigan State, that also is a completely different story. So, I mean, I don't think it's breaking news to say sports are variable, and sometimes you have games in a season that could go either way. I do think this team's got more than what it's given, but you don't have long to get it right because another really important stretch is coming up.
Yeah. Florida and UCLA coming up next week. Tar Heels do not play in the midweek this week with exams finishing up for the first semester. Back in action on Saturday against LaSalle. And, Adam, this is neither breaking news nor something we haven't talked about before. The Tar Heels just have to get more out of the front court. Just have to. 9 total points between Vin Allen Lubin, Jalen Washington, and Jalen Withers. And the Heels just have to have more from those guys. They did rebound well. I mean, those 3 players combined for 22 rebounds of Carolina's 48, so that's good. And I don't know if they'll ever be massive scorers, but I do think you just need to have a little bit more a lot more consistent play from those, if nothing else, to build the confidence within the team that it's a viable option to go to those guys.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you need more than 9 points, but I think you also need that group to do more of what this group needs it to do. Like, you need to be setting screens. And this is where I think the absence of Ty Claude hurt, because I do think he would have played a decent amount given the performance against Alabama. I think he had earned himself some more time, and we were going to see that on Saturday. He was out with the eye injury that he suffered late in that game. So maybe he's part of this. I do think he's part of this equation. Somebody who is a little bit scary. Teams don't necessarily want to drive in against him. He's not like some lengthy shot blocker, but he is a guy you don't want to run into. You're not quite sure what he's going to do. Like when Carolina played against him in Atlanta last year.
Yeah.
He was a problem because he was just playing harder than a couple of the Tar Heels were. Carolina needs that right now. And he's not the end. Like, Ty Claude isn't coming in here to save the season. But I think you sprinkle a little bit of that on this team, and I do think that's helpful. And you need some of those other guys you mentioned to play that way. They're not him, and we respect their personalities that they were given. But as Hubert Davis has said, when you're on the court, we need you to be a little more like that. And not only did they struggle against Georgia Tech, it just felt like they had already decided they were going to struggle. And the rest of the team kind of felt like that too. I mean, you've had a lot of moving parts with the starting lineup. How are you going to handle that?
Which is rare. I think. Yes. I mean, like, Hubert Davis has not done that a lot in his time at Carolina.
And it's not just starting the game. It's even, okay, after 20 minutes, now who's going to start the second half? Even that's in flux. Players handle that in different ways. And they handle that in practice in different ways. And I think it's fair to say that you'd like a guy, if he gets moved out of the starting lineup, to have the best practice of his life the next time, because he says, I'm going to show these coaches what's up, and they won't have a choice but to play me. I don't think that's happened yet. And that's why you're continuing to see the lineups that, I mean, when Carolina plays LaSalle, we don't know who's going to start at the 5.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure who's going to start at the 4. So it's pretty late in the year, although it is still early, to still be that unsure because of the production that you have or honestly have not gotten.
Last thing, Carolina's also and this is hard, it's going to have to shoot better from three. If you're going to take as many threes as Carolina is taking, you've got to make some more. That's just it. I mean, they're 5 of 24 in this game. That was after going 5 of 28 against Alabama. So what is that, 10 of 52? If you are a team that is perimeter-oriented, which this team is, some of those are going to have to go in more.
And this is essentially what you're saying, I think. There have been some years where Carolina's taken that number of three-pointers and we all think, oh, that's too many.
Right.
I think that's probably the right number for this team. But in my mind, more than 5 are going in. And I think that also speaks to personnel also because I do think the one consistent light here the last couple weeks has been Ian Jackson, who's playing a lot better.
Yes, he is.
He's making shots.
He is making shots. And you know what? The thing I think I like the most about Ian Jackson is he doesn't look like he's nervous in any way. He looks like he belongs. Now, I don't know if internally maybe he is nervous. I don't know. But he doesn't look like it. He's playing like he's playing Jelly Fam. And I think that's good. At some point, I mean, I think this team needs some irrational confidence maybe of like he knows he's good enough to go do it. And he's going and doing it. It's not perfect. And he can still get a lot better defensively. I think he has taken some baby steps forward defensively. Still needs to get better. But he's somebody who can do it. He has confidence in going and doing it. And there was the moment, Adam, late in this game, Carolina was up 3, I think, and it had multiple shots within a possession. And it had gotten an offensive rebound. Then there was a rebound that got knocked out of bounds. And so it was like this long possession. And it was a big deal because the game was still a little bit in question. Carolina was up 3, and I'm going to say there was 90 seconds left or so when all of this was happening. Then at some point, Carolina inbounded to Ian Jackson, and he just kind of said, you know what, enough with this dribbling around and burning clock. I'm just going to the hoop, baby. And he went up there and got fouled. He almost made the layup in addition to the foul, hit both his free throws. All of a sudden, you're up 5, and it's a different feel for the final couple seconds of the game. That's not a bad thing sometimes.
Well, think about what made Drake Powell stand out when he had the stretch when he was really playing well. It was because sometimes he just did it.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to run stuff for him or set up specific things. You just say, you go be better at basketball than the other people. Jump over the guy and block his shot. Ian, you take the ball and just go to the basket and score. And just be better. Sometimes that's how you win. So I do think it's a luxury to have those two. You've just got to figure out the right dosage of each.
Adam, what else? Anything else?
The only other thing basketball-wise I would say is that I wonder if we spend all this time on it and we're not overthinking it. It honestly is pretty simple. When Elliot Kado's been good, Carolina's been good. When Elliot Kado's been less than good, Carolina's been less than good.
Yep.
And that's been the case. And that was the case on Saturday. And either the Tar Heels have to figure out a way to work around that, or there's got to be some more consistency. But that is how it's been so far.
Yeah, Kado struggled on Saturday. 7 turnovers, and they weren't turnover forced. A lot of them were not forced by Georgia Tech. They were forced plays or just uncharacteristic mistakes. And we talked about it. I think before Maui, Elliot Kado had been by far Carolina's best player. And he has struggled. And there are going to be ebbs and flows throughout a season. The problem with Elliot Kado having ebbs and flows is how important he is to what Carolina's doing. So it's not like he's doing something wrong. It's not like it's unthinkable that he's had a difficult stretch here. It's just you hope that he works his way out of it quickly because the Tar Heels are much better when he is playing confidently, freely, having fun. Of all the guys who didn't look like they were having fun, he was at the top of the list. And when he does play that way, the Heels are very, very good. When he does play like he's having fun and playing free. He was very good.
And it's a lot to put on one guy who's a sophomore. But I think it also speaks to how talented he is and how much respect the other players have for his game, that when he's that guy who's bouncing around, having fun, putting up the 3 goggles for R.J. Davis and all that stuff, they feel it. And when he's got his head in his hands and is sitting on the bench looking sad, they feel that too.
Yeah. So great news is, Carolina won the game. I mean, it is a lot more palatable to learn these lessons when you won than if you had lost. And so at the end of the day, bottom line, Carolina won. And it's a game you're probably not going to think much about moving forward for the Tar Heels. So you're glad you got it in the win column. A lot of time to get better. As Adam alluded to, this feels like an important week. And we'll see how Carolina looks on Saturday against LaSalle.